The antique grandfather clock chimed 3 times as I watched my sister, Rebecca, storm out of our grandmother's study. Her designer heels clicked sharply on the hardwood floors. The family lawyer, Mr. Harrison, gave me an apologetic look before packing up his papers. "Miss Clark," he said softly, "your grandmother was very clear about her wishes. The estate belongs to you. My name is Olivia Clark, and at 28, I had just inherited not only my grandmother's fortune but also her business, Clark Industries." My sister didn't take it well. I ran my fingers along the smooth mahogany desk where my grandmother had taught me everything she knew. "She'll contest it," I said, not looking up. "You know that, right?" Mr. Harrison nodded as he closed his briefcase. "Your grandmother knew she would. That's why she made sure there were arrangements. 5 years ago, I moved in with my grandmother after college. Everyone thought it was because I had nowhere else to go." Rebecca, already a successful corporate lawyer, called me a failure. What they didn't know was that every morning at 5 a.m., Grandma would wake me up for lessons. "The world is full of Rebeccas," she'd say while pouring coffee in delicate china cups. "People who think success is about what they show on the outside. But real power, Olivia, real control comes from understanding what's beneath." I spent the next 5 years learning everything about Clark Industries. While Rebecca bragged about her office and clothes, I was in the warehouse at 6 a.m., learning inventory management from longtime employees. Grandma would often smile and say, "Your sister visits me for Sunday brunch, but you're here, learning everything I built. Which do you think matters more?" Now, watching Rebecca's Mercedes drive away, I thought about those early mornings and late nights. Everyone thought I was just living with Grandma. Even my parents suggested I get a real job instead of helping her. They didn't know about the business courses I took or the leadership programs Grandma signed me up for. They didn't see me studying late at night, learning about financial reports, company strategy, and history. "Mr. Harrison," I asked, turning to him, "how long until Rebecca makes her move?" He checked his watch. "Knowing your sister, she's probably already on the phone with her firm's probate department. I give it 48 hours before they file." I nodded and went to the old filing cabinet in the corner, where Grandma kept the most important documents. I pulled out a thick folder labeled Contingencies. "Grandma taught you about this too, didn't she?" Mr. Harrison asked, his tone changing. "She taught me everything," I said, opening the folder. Inside were records of every mistake Rebecca had made while working as outside counsel for Clark Industries, every questionable billing practice, every conflict of interest, and every time she used company information for personal gain. "Your sister thinks she's the smart one," Grandma had once told me, "but she's careless. She leaves traces." I smiled as my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Hope you enjoyed your little victory. When my lawyers are done, you'll be lucky if Grandma's china set is still yours." Grandma had always told me never to react emotionally to a threat. Emotion clouds judgment. Strategy requires clarity. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I called Maria Santos, Grandma's longtime assistant and my secret mentor for the last 5 years. "It's time," I said when she answered. "Rebecca's making her move." "Everything's ready," Maria replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Your grandmother left very detailed instructions. Shall we begin?" For the next several hours, Maria and I carried out the plan Grandma had prepared. First, we contacted the board members, not the official ones that Rebecca knew about, but the advisory board Grandma quietly set up over the past 5 years. These were people who had worked with me, mentored me, and knew what I was capable of. Then, we reached out to key clients and partners, using relationships I had built while Rebecca was climbing the corporate ladder at her law firm. Meanwhile, I had been learning every part of our family business. By midnight, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from Rebecca's allies in the company, all suddenly worried about their positions. They had backed Rebecca, thinking she was the obvious heir, a successful lawyer, a polished businesswoman. Now they were realizing that Grandma had been preparing me to lead in a completely different way. I sat in Grandma's study, now my study, looking at her photograph on the desk. She was young in the picture, standing in front of the first Clark Industries warehouse, a woman building an empire when women weren't supposed to run companies. "Your sister thinks power comes from titles and corner offices," Grandma had told me during one of our last conversations, "but real power comes from understanding every gear in the machine, from knowing the people who make it run. I taught you everything I know, Olivia. The question is, are you ready to use it?" The grandfather clock struck midnight, and I straightened my black blazer. "Tomorrow," Rebecca would arrive at her office to find several key clients had already called to show their confidence in me. The board would hold an emergency meeting to confirm my position. Her attempts to challenge the will would be stopped by a wall of evidence showing why Grandma had chosen me. But first, I had one more lesson to remember. I opened Grandma's safe using the combination she had taught me years ago and pulled out an envelope marked for Olivia, when Rebecca shows her true colors. Inside was a letter written in Grandma's elegant handwriting. My dearest Olivia. If you're reading this, then Rebecca has reacted exactly as I knew she would. Power reveals people. Darling, it shows us who they truly are. Your sister sees the world as a game to be won. You see it as a legacy to be preserved. That's why you're reading this letter in my study, and she's probably sitting in her office right now, plotting her next move. But remember, this isn't about beating Rebecca, it's about being worthy of what I've built. I chose you not because you're smarter or better, but because you understand what Clark Industries really is, a family of people working together to build something meaningful. Don't let anger or resentment guide you. Lead with the wisdom I know you possess. And remember, sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies, but in showing them a better way. All my love. Grandma. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but I was ready. Grandma had made sure of that. My phone buzzed again with another angry text from Rebecca. I smiled, thinking about all the lessons, early mornings, and quiet preparation that led to this moment. Rebecca thought she was at war with her little sister. She had no idea she was facing someone who had spent 5 years learning how to be a general. The morning after the will reading was bright and cold. I arrived at Clark Industries headquarters at 5 a.m. A habit I couldn't break. The security guard, Tom, greeted me with a knowing smile. He'd seen me arrive at this hour hundreds of times over the past 5 years, though until yesterday, everyone thought I was just the boss's granddaughter. My first stop was the executive floor, not to Grandma's old office, but to the small conference room where the real work happened. Maria was already there, surrounded by documents and her laptop. Rebecca's lawyers filed the challenge an hour ago, she said without looking up. They're claiming diminished capacity and undue influence. I poured myself coffee in Grandma's old mug. Have they realized yet? Maria's smile was sharp. That your grandmother had quarterly psychological evaluations for the past 5 years? Or that every major decision about your training was documented and witnessed by independent parties? The filing just landed on Mr. Harrison's desk. He's probably reading it with his morning coffee. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. It was Rebecca. You think you're so clever, she hissed when I answered. I just spoke to the board. They're calling an emergency session to review Grandma's decision. You really think they'll support some inexperienced little girl over me? I let her rant, remembering Grandma's lessons about patience. The meeting was at 2 p.m. When Rebecca paused, I calmly replied, I'll see you there. What she didn't know was that, over the last 5 years, I had spent time getting to know every board member, not through fancy dinners, but through real work. Mr. Chen from operations taught me about supply chain management. Mrs. Rodriguez mentored me in finance. They had seen me grow and prove myself, while Rebecca focused on climbing the corporate ladder. At 1:55 p.m., I entered the boardroom. Rebecca was already there, looking confident in her expensive suit. She had arranged her allies on one side of the table, thinking I would face a united opposition. Before the meeting started, she stood up and said, We need to discuss the stability of Clark Industries under its current leadership. She went on about her legal team's analysis of why my grandmother's decision should be reviewed. I let her finish before nodding to Maria, who began passing out folders to everyone. Rebecca asked, What's this? She flipped through the papers. A 5-year strategic plan for Clark Industries. I replied calmly. I created it with input from each department, based on my own experience in every division of the company. As the board members read, their expressions changed. They recognized projects and ideas they had discussed with me. I continued. You'll also find audited financials for the divisions I've been managing for the last 3 years. We've had an average growth of 27% per year, employee satisfaction at 40%, and client retention at an all-time high. Rebecca's confidence faded. That's impossible. You were just Grandma's caretaker. Mr. Chen spoke up. Actually, your sister has been running our Asia-Pacific operations since 2021. That expansion you praised last quarter, that was her work. Mrs. Rodriguez added, and the new financial modeling system? Olivia developed that after spending 6 months improving our processes. The board members began sharing stories about projects I'd worked on and problems I'd solved. Rebecca had thought I was just a caretaker, she snapped. This is ridiculous. I'm a qualified corporate lawyer. I have real business experience. I replied softly, yes, you're a lawyer, but I'm a leader. Grandma knew the difference. I then pulled out a letter from Grandma, written for this moment. I read it aloud. If you're hearing this, then you're deciding between my two granddaughters. One has spent her career climbing ladders. The other has spent 5 years learning to build them. Choose wisely. A company is not a trophy to be won, but a legacy to be nurtured. The vote was unanimous. Rebecca stormed out of the room. Part of me wanted to call after her, to explain what Grandma had tried to teach us both. But then I remembered one of Grandma's last lessons. Sometimes, Olivia, the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them learn from their mistakes. It was Rebecca's choice to grow or not. In the weeks that followed, Clark Industries thrived under the plans I had spent years developing. Rebecca eventually dropped her legal challenge when she saw how thoroughly Grandma had documented everything. A month later, I received a package from Grandma's lawyer. Inside was a small key and a note that read, "For when you're ready to teach the next generation what I taught you. Love, Grandma." The key opened a hidden compartment in Grandma's desk, revealing decades of journals about her journey building Clark Industries. As I read them, I understood her final lesson. True legacy isn't about inheritance or control. It's about passing down wisdom, lessons learned, and the understanding that real success comes from building something worthy of being passed on. Rebecca never understood that, but as I watched the sun rise over Clark Industries, arriving early, just like Grandma taught me, I knew I'd be ready when the next generation came seeking wisdom. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't proving others wrong, but proving your teachers right.